It's the Redirect Podcast. Search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
Welcome back to episode 12 of the Redirect Podcast. It's Friday, August 11th, 2017. I'm Jason Dodge, and welcome once again by Patrick and Ashley from the Black Truck team. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I believe, Patrick, you said you were going to play lead off today, so I'm going to let you share what you're reading, maybe some insights, and what you're thinking.
Sure. I actually found this article last week and I wasn't able to share it last week because we ran out of time. So
old news.
It's old news, but it's relevant news that will always make sense. Designing content for the mobile first index. It's not so much just about having a mobile friendly site, but it's making it readable. A thing that we see too often is just not just jumbled text and an improperly formatted web page when you're mobile, but just making it easier to read. Little shortcuts, little things to help people to make it more user friendly. Some of the tips in here that I thought was pretty relevant and could totally make sense. A table of contents that's clickable.
So like that TLD.
Not different from a TLDR. Too long, didn't read. That's actually one of the items that's on here. So like a table of contents would just straight up be like in a book. You know, if it's you see it like in Wikipedia articles. If you read a wiki page, if it's long, they'll have like a clickable TOC at the beginning. Doing something like, even if it's simple like that at the top of a page. HTML headings that you could click through or follow through to, so it can read. You can link to that proper spot. Accordion content, expandable content. I thought that was an interesting one too. So it's you got your little down caret that you can open, and so you can scroll through to better items. Filters to filter out large sections. The filters might be more applicable on maybe product type searches,
or even blog posts. We've talked about our new site, even,
right?
As having the filtering option of, are you interested in SEO only content? Are you interested in PPC content?
Right.
And to be able to reshuffle the tiles,
right,
in order to do so.
And then a TLDR, too long hyphen didn't read. That's semicolon. Sorry. Those. The suggestion was to place it at the beginning, or maybe even like in a bullet format, because it oftentimes you might see a summary like that at the bottom, and who even knows that the summary is at the bottom? They're not going to scroll to the bottom first. You see it on a lot of news sites, maybe some of the less than top end news sites.
Sure.
You'll see like a bullet list of what's going on, and I know sometimes I'll get first like, why am I reading this a second time? I just read it in the hyphen.
How do you feel about then too the like the medium approach of average read time of 7 minutes? Would you take that into account on a mobile site versus?
I don't think this article discussed average read time.
I know that. I'm just saying, what's your opinion on it? Do you like it? Do you not?
I think that for like a summary at the top, I think it will. You have the risk of losing page view time. But at the end of the day, if they're getting the content that they need out of it, I don't know if it matters if they're on the site.
Yeah, does it get into the psychology of like, oh God, I don't have 7 minutes to read this whole thing, even though we know the majority of readers are probably not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah. Right. The biggest thing about all these points too, I thought, it converts really well over to the desktop. Because this will make the mobile read friendly. But it's going to make on the desktop that much easier too. Not to say that we're seeing sloppy content out there where there's a nice informative blog post, but when you see things like this organized properly, I know that I enjoy a website a little bit better when I can navigate and flow through it proper, and everything isn't hidden. You know, I feel like this is just one step to make the internet clean. You know, as far as organized better, and it's a great opportunity to make things. It's not really going to help with like your search ranking, I don't think, but it's going to help with friendliness, which will drive more traffic in the long run, which then could back end you back to a better relevancy.
Something that stuck out to me in the list that you shared is the accordion content. I think it's definitely useful for mobile, but when you're talking about how that translates to desktop, I don't know.
I've missed content before in an accordion. That's why I say it's got to be clearly marked. Sometimes the caret, the drop-down caret to open it up is gray, and your backdrop is like
not big enough.
White. Yeah, you just can't see it. Again, it's design friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be visible, even if it's the word expand.
And there for a while too, even accordion content or tabbed content was the question from an SEO perspective as well. Why are we hiding content if it's true content that we want a reader to see and to read? And because the search engine is going to be able to read it because it's in the page,
right.
But there were a lot of questions about whether or not that was a legitimate play or not. But it very well, I mean, it's completely fine now. But I think it's driven by mobile. Anything that I've read about that is that it's driven by mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go on the limb and say, like, you should tab every single page,
right.
Or you should have accordion for every single page, because some of those, we've been in situations where that accordion content actually would serve a better purpose if it lived on its own.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be every page is going to be,
What would be a good example, in your opinion, of a product or service level page where you think where that type of arrangement would
put me on the spot
would work well?
I guess more of like a feature article that's really going down. I know that I like to read more investigative type things, like long form news articles, and sometimes if I'm scrolling through and like I've been reading for 20 minutes or something, and I'll just, man, this is long. I'll like scroll and see how small the little scroller is on the side. And if there's if it's a little tiny dot of a scroller, I'm like, whoa, there is a lot of content left here. It will deter me from reading the whole article.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, going back to the having the time to read at the top of an article, I like that, because then I know what I'm getting into. And if it's something that I can't read right now, then I'll usually, bookmark it and go back to it later.
It is interesting. So you've got some people read. Moz was using it for a while. They were doing the time to read. I don't think they're using it anymore. I don't think they're employing that.
Is there science behind it
anymore? I don't know. It would be a curious ask. So if anybody from Moz is listening to the Redirect podcast, perhaps you could answer us, or we will tweet at you and we'll try and find out the psychology of a user. I do think that there's a lot of benefit in it from an e-commerce perspective, where if I land on the product and it's like, oh yeah, that's the product I'm looking for, this is great, and I can quickly say, well, I want to look at the reviews, or I can quickly look at that or specifications or things of that nature. So cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that. Jason, you and I share a passion for do-it-yourself in the big box tool stores. I know that those have really good tab views to get from specs to reviews to product descriptions. You go over to, say, an Amazon, and they do not.
Yeah.
I do not like the way an Amazon product page flows to get to those reviews or to get to those questions, to get to the specs. Because it's user-generated versus, a Lowe's page is not user-generated. And I think that the flow of like a Lowe's page is a lot better than an Amazon product page. And let's face it, we do a lot of Amazon shopping. And we do a lot of decision making by those reviews. And I can't get to them easy.
That's a good point. Ashley, are you jumping in?
Sure.
Do you have a segue?
Sure. No, I don't have a segue.
Just gonna go with it.
But I did want to share, and maybe this was something you were planning to share today, the article that you had shared with us earlier this week from Seer Interactive called Direct Traffic is Dark Traffic, and That's Okay.
I was hoping that someone would bring it up, because I wasn't going to, so it was more of a throw it out there and let you guys pick away on it.
Well, I'll feel free to jump in whenever, but it's a great article just talking about how it's really hard to track where your traffic is coming from, and you might get a lot of traffic showing up as direct in analytics, and you're just not sure where that's coming from. So there's that problem of last click attribution. In analytics, it's going to tell you the last click, rather than, maybe someone had landed on something else first, or they were searching for this item first, and then they were retargeted, and somehow through a circle of events they landed up on this page and making a conversion. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked in the past about how Google is taking steps to address that. But in the meantime, until this is all fixed, which may never be the case, I think that this article has some really great suggestions for how you can fix this issue of not knowing where your traffic's coming from. So my big takeaways, and I'm sure that you will have taken other things away from it, is using campaign tags for everything possible. So that's definitely something that I'm going to take to heart and try to use more. For instance, I know that we talked about this week that MailChimp will automatically attach campaign tags for any clicks in your emails. But a great takeaway from this article regarding campaign tags is you can't track traffic coming from someone seeing your URL on a billboard or hearing it on the radio. So Saif Sharif is the guy that wrote this article. He talked about using custom URLs that redirect to a campaign URL that you can then track in analytics. And I just think that's brilliant, because there you go, you have a way to track the traffic that's coming from these efforts.
I'd be curious the number of people who see a billboard and are going to type that in versus actually go and search for the brand. So to kind of come full circle,
Sure.
not to crush his hopes and dreams of having campaign tracking integrated with offline advertising, but the majority of people, and maybe this is just my experience that I've seen, is that you drive by a billboard, it's like a second, right? If that billboard makes an impact on you, you remember the brand, and you're going to go and search for that brand. So maybe that's more of a case of making sure your client is bolstered up on brand-related search phrases. Now, does that mean that we're accompanying the outdoor campaign with a paid search campaign where normally we wouldn't bid on company's brand name, but in this case we might, just to make sure and to help bolster that up. At the same time, we also hope that organically they're doing well. But I think that's an interesting thing, not to railroad it completely, but and maybe this is just a future piece of content we need to discuss developing, but really is helping people understand what is dark traffic. A couple of years ago, it was probably more like, what is dark search? What is dark social? And you even think about how direct user visits, that data gets skewed, and explaining that to someone who's not in the trenches to understand that, like, well, actually a direct visit could come from a link in social. Well, what do you mean? Or it could come from a link out of your email signature. Or, so it's really, things have kind of gotten turned on their heads in the past, 18 months and longer than that. And to be able to define that and explain it, I think Sears done a really good job of trying to explain that, because what boils down to is reporting on that becomes much more difficult.
Yeah.
A featured snippet, again, there's a lot of value in that, and we can show click-through rates go through the ceiling if you can nail a featured snippet. But what about the others that don't click on it? Do the search query, you were winning the featured snippet, but there's no traffic per se that comes from that. Just being able to report on that. And obviously there's tools out there. Moz does it to a certain extent. Stat does it. There's tools out there that help explain that, but the search marketer's toolkit now has to be much larger, and you have to be a lot, the depth at which how to navigate those waters, I think, is becoming even harder.
Will that keep track of, it won't keep track of second-time visitors? Like, your history already has a memory of it. You start typing it in, and the URL automatically fills in. You just hit enter. That's a direct visit too.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to worry about there. Yeah.
I like that you said that the marketer's toolkit has to open up and really dig deeper on that one.
Did we completely railroad you? Sorry.
No, not at all. I was hoping you would add to the discussion. And I know I didn't give a lot of context at the beginning about what that article was about, but it's a good read.
Cool. Well, keeping on the theme of maybe more, that's probably more in line with managing expectations of either online channel share or SEO. There's a really good article on Search Engine Watch from a couple days ago. I think it's August 9th from Kevin Gamache, probably slaughtering the last name. Sorry, Kevin. But it's asks the question, does it matter what department your SEO team is in?
Oh, yeah, I read this one.
And it's good. It's probably more of a heartfelt, top level, doesn't get super deep in the weeds. It's a quick read. Mm-hmm. And with the caveat that he opens with, there isn't one correct answer for how every company or agency should do this. I agree 100%. So he runs through it as like optimal as it's a separate SEO department. It lives within the strategy department, the tech department with like developers and IT, within a digital marketing and advertising. It lives within your creative copywriters, your analytics team. What's interesting is he kind of is touching on both in-house and agency side. For us, since the big thing and basically the only thing we focus on is search, again, paid or organic, but that's what we're dedicated to. So it's like, we are the SEO department, mm-hmm. right, for either our clients or if we happen to be pulled in by an agency, we are that SEO department. But if you were in-house, my approach very much would be and it's amazing to me that the companies that are still very much siloed, that you want to have that SEO involved, in a consistent basis. If it's a new project from the ground up, think about it this way. If you were I'm thinking about a recent experience. I got pulled into a meeting. It's a very heavy engineering-driven company. A lot of history, great brand, but they're just driven by engineering and product development. Not the other way around in terms of market research and need and demand. There's mm-hmm. not that hard, fast data. Mm-hmm. So what happens if the SEO was injected into those, at least on a conceptual basis of an engineering meeting, to start talk about that product design, and maybe they're in there with the product and category managers to say, interesting, taking notes in the background, even fly on the wall. I'd love to be doing live research in those meetings, just to kind of be able to disclose, like, hey guys, nice idea. Dude, there's nobody searching for that. Or what your idea is great, but I think we should call it X. So it's almost like if you were advising someone on content and what should we include in there in the approach, like why isn't that done at the product level or at the service level? Mm-hmm. I've always said, even like when a client's going through a site redesign, like we want to be brought in as early as possible on that process, even at the wireframe level if we can. So if you're in-house or agency side, I think it's really important to try and have, now more than ever, to have your SEO team should just be involved in communicating. Not just communicating, like get that person brought into those key meetings that are happening. And there might be people who say that meetings are a waste of time, but no, I think you would be amazed if you would bring an SEO into a particular meeting, whether it's a general marketing meeting, a communications meeting, content, or kind of that overarching, just even business direction. I think they need to be in that meeting because there's a lot of value that they will get out of it. There's a lot of value that we get out of it. I'm not saying that the SEO is always going to provide value to them. That might be a little bit of a pompous statement to make, but I think there's a lot to glean from that.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so it kind of taking a few things out of context here and in context with what Kevin had to say. I think it's a really great read, but very, very few yet have I seen that are maybe as siloed or broken up as the way that he's shown it here. But yeah, if you're a large Fortune 500 company and you have an analytics department and you're not talking with SEO, or the SEO is not talking to the analytics department, you're completely separated from reality in that regard. So, or your PPC team's not talking to your SEO team. and you're not working with each other and learning. So I think it really has to be integrated. So I agree with Kevin here on a few of these points in the approach, but man, the more integrated it can be, I think that would be really, really important. So enough of me talking about that. So.
Yeah, so my next piece kind of can segue into that. Found an article, Search Engine Land, was actually just published today. Disclosure and transparency, the relationship between agency and client. When we, oftentimes I find from when we start to onboard another client, if it's a client that either has not ever had an SEO firm to work with before or is transferring over from another, the clients that are transferring over from another, mostly it's because the relationship went sour. Maybe not so much for lack of performance, but for lack of communication, and they just weren't really sure what they were paying for, or weren't getting access to.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to admit that a lot of times, never throughout this podcast has it been like humble, bragging about us, but really, I'll be the first I think as the founder of the company to say that we're always a better fit for your second SEO or SEM agency. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we want to come in and be a hero, because I think this plays into the article that you read. I think I know the one that you're talking about, is that you've been there, you kind of cut your teeth with someone else and you learned what you didn't know. And in some cases, yeah, it really sucks, and it just grinds my gears every day, but it also is passion for me to drive things forward and do things the right way. Is that not every case is the same where you got duped, but it's false expectations and somebody didn't explain it to you and take the time to educate you and things like that. There's a myriad of reasons why, and I just think that's where that statement comes from.
To kind of not necessarily go away from the article, but it made me think off the article, is the line of communication. Jason, earlier today I asked you, I kind of picked your brain about if we sever ties with the client that we were doing PPC for, that we created the account from scratch, what happens with that account? And you said what I anticipated, it's the clients, that they should get access to it.
Right.
And it's too often I've heard of stories where they weren't getting access, or they were denying, the former SEO was denying the company rights, because it's mine, you're paying me, you were paying the bill. And it's kind of interesting to say, again, not tooting Black Truck's horn, but it's so different from what we're for. It's like any dealership can sell you that Ford truck on their lot. It's a matter of what was your experience with the salesman who's selling you that same F-150 that's available on every lot. And it's up to us to be not necessarily salesmen, but like to be your client relations. And it's
well, do you have integrity in your work, in your job, in your craft, and whatever it is? It could be SEO, you could be an iron worker. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you have integrity in what it is that you're doing,
right,
then that should be. I mean, is it going to suck if you have a client that decides to end the dating or marriage relationship?
Right.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and bitch and moan about it, or are you going to shake hands and say, "Hey, it's been great. Here you go"? Because in the end, I mean, if you are that person to play that card, just like if you were in-house and played that and you were like, screw you guys, I'm not going to let you know anything. Or you were in-house IT and you were like, I'm not going to give you administrative access to Google Analytics. You might take my job. I don't want your job. Right? I mean, just be nice to people, have integrity in what you're doing, and good things are going to happen in that relationship.
At the end of the day, they're paying you to do the items that they don't know how to.
Correct.
And they may not necessarily want to learn how to do it, but they respect your ability to do it, and just keep that communication going. We have one client that we work with that doesn't. They say we don't want reports, but we send them reports anyways, and they can't. It's not necessarily just over communicating and over customer service. It's almost like a CYA item too. It's if something down the road were to come to happen, like we talked about it here when we delivered this, and it's twofold in that regard. And it's
It's probably trifold too, because if you're doing those reports, whether client wants them or not, you're always checking in, right? So you kind of got that day-to-day cadence of management, weekly, the various touch points, monthly's that big shot overview. That's also a point too where others might be asking the questions. I might jump into that report per se and go, hey Pat, where are we at on this? So even from an agency or in-house perspective to say like, hey, I understand you don't see value in that, but I'm going to keep doing that because I know someone's going to.
Right.
That's a tough one.
I had a client one time, a newer client, post-implementation deliverable, sent him a report, and he's like, "What's this? I'm not paying for this." Like, no, you already have. This is part of our initial project. So this is the follow-through, finish up part. And he's like, "Oh, you guys are great."
So is this the same article that talked about almost like creating somewhat of a digital crash plan, if you will, talking about making sure you have things documented?
Yeah,
the
domain name.
Yeah,
onboarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that onboarding list is basically our onboarding list.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is. It's really amazing to me how logical those items are.
Right.
And then when you're asking someone those, they go, "Oh God, I don't know."
Yeah. Who's the admin on your Google Analytics
So
account?
maybe we should not even have a conversation about where does your SEO team live. Maybe we should have the conversation of who's the owner and controller of these assets, and that's where's your domain name registered, who's your hosting provider, who has access to the Google Analytics account, who has access to the site, who has like all these security things.
What about the logo files, like your company account information? Yeah, it's like, gonna get back to you on that one.
So it's very easy now in the digital economy to get very messy with that.
Yes,
I think it's very easy to share things or have things get lost in the shuffle too. And then especially if you're using emails, your filing system, and
how many times have you talked to a client and they say, "Yeah, so it turns out a former employee is the admin on that, and we don't have access to that."
Yep. No, really good. And I think the touch points, I just pulled that article up. I think you're right. This is great. Just a reminder of, if you're looking to, if you're transitioning agencies, or you're going from in-house to agency, other way around, it doesn't matter. We're all going to need this information at some point in the relationship. So you might as well document it and keep it up to date. And if you don't have it documented and don't have it up to date, then it's going to be painful for whoever jumps in there. And it's only going to slow things down. But it's really great. Anybody have one more thing? Anybody?
I do have something on optimizing PDFs for SEO, but
really?
I can share it now, or I can share it.
I think we
next
should
week.
wait till the next time.
Okay,
I'd
sounds good.
love to jump into that next time.
Okay.
Real quick in closing, I think too, so there's some testing going out. Google ad tag placements in the Google local pack, so seeing some ads come up in local search, so in the map listings. Normally those have been in the same line as review stars, but now if there is no star review, it drops the ads tag even further in listing, so it pushes the ad down. That was from Jennifer Slag on the SEM post. The other one that's in line with that I'm going to continue to do my own researching on, as back to the DIYer comment earlier about midway through this segment. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and just how-tos, and when there's things that I'm just kind of like stuck on and I want a little bit like, let's see, especially if they're automotive related, what I've noticed now is there's a lot more shopping ads that are being injected into the bottom of those YouTube videos for items related to or very closely in line to what's being talked about in the videos. It's really interesting. And it's happening both desktop, mobile, tablet. It's happening across all three devices. Yep. Carousel style, drops down. It's really kind of neat. So next time I encounter it, I'll make sure I try and take a screenshot of it. Usually it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm like laying in bed researching something.
Right.
So I don't think about like telling Google to screenshot it, but nonetheless, it's good stuff. So I think in closing, if you haven't yet, be sure to check out our latest our latest blog post, which what did it go live? Last week, 2 weeks ago? On hashtags?
2 weeks ago, yep.
Yeah, so how to use hashtags in Instagram for better reach in your audience and really expanding your social presence that way. So it's a really good piece. Patrick and Ashley worked on that one.
It was Patrick.
Was it Patrick? It was all Patrick?
It was all Patrick.
That was me.
Hashtag Patrick.
I like that.
All right.
Hashtag Patrick.
All right. Until next week. Take care and good luck.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.